Welcome back. You're watching The Buck Stops here. Time now for our big political and foreign policy debate on the program tonight. Sri Lanka's foreign minister is working the phones to New Delhi this evening, asking India to reconsider the decision. That's our big focus on the program today. This after, of course, the Prime Minister announced in Parliament that India, while awaiting the final text of that draft resolution against Lanka at the United Nations, is inclined to vote against Lanka. In other words, it's inclined to push Lanka to do much more to acknowledge the human rights violations in its crackdown against the LTTE. We're also hearing that the language of this resolution may be changed to include the condemnation of the LTTE. But on the program today, we're debating, can India afford to take sides? Is it a good idea for India to vote against Lanka at the UNHCR? Let's introduce our panel this evening. We're joined by Mr. Subramanian Swamy. He's, of course, a Minister of State in the Prime Minister's office on this program, telling us last week that he would tell the Prime Minister in his personal capacity to support the resolution. With us in the studio, we have D. Raja. He's, of course, Member of Parliament and Senior Leader of the CPI. We also have the very outspoken Subramanian Swamy, President of the Janata Party. We're joined by former Foreign Secretary Kaval Sibal. And from Chennai tonight, we're joined by Jnani Sankaran, Tamil writer and poet. Mr. Narayan Swamy, if I may start with you, all indications were that India would abstain. Now, the Prime Minister indicating that we are voting for the resolution against Sri Lanka. Does this decision stand despite the phone calls by the Sri Lankan Foreign Minister to Mr. Krishna this evening?
No, the Honorable Prime Minister took the decision the government is inclined to vote in favor of the UN resolution, which is moved by the United States of America on the human rights violation in Sri Lanka. This is a considered view that has been taken by the Honorable Prime Minister, because the India found that on 2009, when the massacre took place, and thereafter UN also constituted a committee to inquire into it, and Sri Lankan government also constituted a committee.
Yes.
And even the minimum which is required for the Sri Lankan government to fulfill the LLRC, which they failed to do. Therefore, India is bound to support the resolution moved by the United States of America.
And that's
therefore, there is no
sir?
dilution of our stand in that.
So it's categorical that
there is no dilution of...
I'm checking. Is there still a chance?
Dilution of...
Is there still a chance of abstaining, or are you categorical that India will vote for the resolution?
No, in fact, I wanted to make it very clear that when the Honorable Prime Minister they told the views of the government inside the Parliament, it stands.
Okay. Can I take this to Subramanian Swamy? Last week, we were here and you said this would be a terrible idea. Since then, there has been some movement which you're aware of. The text of the draft resolution, we believe, is going to be changed to include condemnation of the LTTE. Does that change your opinion on which way India should vote?
Well, I certainly think that that's much better than the earlier resolution, but the fact is still, I think it's very important for India not to be supporting a resolution moved by the United States of America. This is our backyard, and we are related by blood to both the Sinhalese and the Tamils. And India should try to see that the Tamils get devolution of power. And for that, you've got to win the confidence of the establishment there. Now, let me just say one thing. Let me just say one thing. There's some hypocrisy in those who argue for this so-called genocide against the Tamils. Who did they support, these LTT parties, during the presidential election? They supported the commander-in-chief of the Sri Lankan army. And at the same time, they say that the atrocities were committed by the army. Now, how can both be reconciled? This hypocrisy should end. We should take a stand that what has happened, we will certainly like to see that the people there are punished on the basis of what the reports say. But the focus should be on devolution of power.
So you're saying it's really not our business to get into how the Sri Lankans implement their own law, in a sense?
No, I'm saying it's not our business to tell the Sri Lankans at in what way they should prosecute the human rights excesses, just as we don't allow anybody else
to tell us
what to do in Manipur or Kashmir.
That seems reasonable. How would you rebut that? You know, and India so far had a conventional position to not get involved in country-specific resolutions. We did depart on that with Syria, but largely we have held that position.
There were occasions India took independent positions. It is not all the time India follows conventional position. Having said that, I must say, in fact, today I reiterated my position on the floor of the House in presence of Prime Minister. I asked the Prime Minister, ideally speaking, India should have moved the resolution.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
No, I certainly think that India should have moved a
different resolution.
Yeah, different but India should have taken the lead.
I said on the floor of the House, ideally speaking, India should have moved the resolution because India is the immediate neighbor. India knows everything what happened in Sri Lanka.
But Dr. Swamy is saying that the resolution should have been on devolution of power and not on human rights excesses.
That is second part. The first part, there were war crimes. There were abuse of human rights, violation of human rights, and at least there must be some accountability. How many thousands of people were killed? How can you forget all those things? And no, it is a moral question.
I have no disagreement with that, except that it should also include the LTT.
It's a moral question.
And the LTT should be exposed.
India cannot.
Answer that. Why is there no outrage about the violations committed by the LTTE? Surely we should be pushing for condemnation of both.
That violation also. But now the Sri Lankan government has declared LTTE has been wiped out. Now, what is the point in blocking the...
Quickly, Dr. Swamy, and then I take that to cover.
LTT is not wiped out. Its money is still playing a role. Those people in America... There is Rudra, there is some Rudra something who is leading an immigrant government.
Sri Lankan government has declared it has won the war against
We are thinking of India.
Okay, let me interject here.
Wiped out. Now, we will have to raise the issue of
very different perspectives, very different perspectives. Kanwal Sibal, this is the kind of heated emotion that in a sense the government actually had to pay heed to. What are your concerns as we approach this vote?
Well, you know, we must make a distinction between domestic policies and foreign policy. Yes, we are a democracy, government has to be sensitive to public opinion. But should foreign policy in very sensitive areas be dictated by public opinion in a way that may be very costly for our long-term interests? We have always taken a position in the Human Rights Commission earlier, in the Human Rights Council, that human rights must not be used as a political tool for either regime change or toppling of governments or naming and shaming governments or embarrassing governments or creating internal problems in countries, etc., etc. And we've been seeing that human rights has been used selectively to put pressure on certain countries which are seen as adversaries of the West. This is a tool which has been developed and honed and effectively used by Western countries against certain regimes. Therefore, as a matter of principle, we have said that we are opposed to the idea of using human rights as a geopolitical tool, and therefore...
Mr. Sibal, what are the perils? What are the perils you believe? I know you're saying we're departing from convention, but what are the perils?
No, but the perils are quite that you are interfering in the internal affairs of countries. And this is a basic principle of how relations between countries are conducted. This does not mean that if there is something exceptionally wrong in a country where there's a complete breakdown of law and order, where there's a genocide being committed, then nobody will dispute the fact that the international community has to take action. But when you use this as a political weapon, it's different. Now, take the example of Sri Lanka. The question of human rights has been in the air for the last couple of years. It's not as if it has suddenly emerged or new evidence has emerged or suddenly the international community has been forced to take cognizance of the issue. It's not the case. Now, the point is because of a certain film that was shown on Channel 4, which showed some atrocities that have been committed, and suddenly the government of India and others have to take a position. I mean, should our foreign policy be dictated by a program that is shown on a particular television channel? The issues are known.
Let me take
now,
that to
we should of course put a lot of...
our foreign policy. In fact, India has to recast its policy towards Sri Lanka and some other countries. Why India can independently recast
Mr. Narayan Swamy, there is a perception, and that's the point being made by Kanwal Sibal, that two things have driven India's shift: domestic politics and this film. What changed? How did India go from abstaining to voting for the resolution?
No, no, as because, you know, Kapil Sibal has been talking very diplomatically. It is not a question, it is a question of the people who have been massacred in thousands in Sri Lanka, but at the time when the war took place between LTT and the Sri Lankan government, and there are excesses between both the sides. LTT also has been using the human shield and innocent people were being killed. But even the LTT also eliminated the Tamil people there. Both are totally involved. Then that being the case, it's not a case of isolated case where there is a enormous killing of people, and India being a neighbor, and if we keep quiet, then what will be the impression that we are giving to the world? Therefore, they considering all these aspects, you know, it will have an impact on our relations with Sri Lanka. It is a fact.
Yeah.
But even then, India supported human rights violation wherever it took place throughout the world, in any country.
But
therefore,
sir, tomorrow,
in Sri Lanka, India cannot take a different stand.
Okay, you're saying India has to stand up for the principle, Dr. Swamy, even if it impacts the relationship.
Well, the question is not, we should not say about the human rights. Certainly we can tell Sri Lanka, we have very close working relationship with them. We can say that these are the information we've got, please investigate it and tell us. You deal it bilaterally, you deal it through the SAARC. Why Americans suddenly wake up one day and they decide to bring a resolution? What about what's happening with the drones in Pakistan?
That is a good question.
When Sri Lankan government, which has been asked to investigate, that is not investigate.
Why India
LLRC findings, why they are not investigated?
Raja, normally the left, the Washington is a red rag for the left. Pun fully intended. Pun fully intended. Is there some hypocrisy to this resolution being America-led?
No, there is no hypocrisy. There is no hypocrisy. I am, in fact, very honest, very sincere in my statements. I said India should have brought the resolution. In the absence of India's resolution, some resolution comes in the UN Human Rights Council meeting. Then what India can do? Again, I am asking, if India has the guts, India has the political will, let India move a resolution, parallel resolution.
Can I pose a slightly different question? No, I'm still waiting to connect to Chennai.
For the first time, Communist Party is supporting American resolution.
No, it is not American resolution. Sorry to say. And it is you have become stooge of America and signed 1, 2, 3 agreement. There is a in your foreign policy in favor of America. That I know. That is a drift.
But Mr. Raja, do you see this resolution sponsored? Mr. Swamy, just a minute. Do you see this resolution is sponsored by America? Because it's a US created resolution.
See, there are several other countries. European Union is there. Norway is there. Several other countries are there. The point is, India failed to move a resolution. India should have done. Even now I demand, India should have moved the resolution. When India failed to move such a resolution, some resolution is coming. India being member of United Nations and India trying to become the permanent member of the UN Security Council, as a responsible nation, India should take a position. When I made this statement, in presence of Prime Minister, I asked India should take a positive, proactive role to change the resolution, strengthen the resolution. India should really point out the war crimes and human rights violations in the resolution.
Can I interject here? We're trying to get our audio up to Chennai, and before I get a perspective from there, a different kind of question to Dr. Swamy and Mr. Sibal. Many people believe that, for example, India's ambivalence or the delay in taking a position on Egypt and Libya contradicts India's assertion as a superpower today. We want a permanent seat on the Security Council, but we keep dithering. This is an opportunity to take a clear position, so why should we abstain? To you and Mr. Sibal.
What do you mean? If you are going to not take a stand on Syria at the right time, or with Iran, or with Libya, why should you pick on Sri Lanka? Just because it is your neighbor and it's a small neighbor, you pick on it because there will be no consequences from Sri Lanka's side?
Do you think we're being self-serving?
No, I think it's an abject surrender to the Americans. The Americans don't have something behind this human rights resolution. I know what it is. It's their anger at Mr. Rajapaksa for not implementing the assurances that he gave them before the LTT war.
So it's interesting. Mr. Raja wants his resolution backed. You feel it's an abject surrender to Americans. Some would think it's an ideological
No, I have a
switch.
different position. It is not that I want American resolution. I want a UN resolution. I said it on the floor of the parliament. And India should have taken the lead. India has failed to do its job.
Okay,
That's what I'm asking.
Okay, Jnani Sankaran, just 1 minute. 1 minute, Narayan Swamy, 1 minute. Jnani Sankaran, sorry we couldn't get you up earlier. Your perspective, what do you make of the India's decision to basically now support this resolution? We're also hearing that amendments are being made to it to include condemnation of the LTT.
See, I've been listening to all the speakers so far in the panel. I have a totally different perspective sitting here in Tamil Nadu and talking to various Tamil organizations who have been demanding action against Sri Lanka. We have a totally different perspective here. We look at this resolution as a very meek, whitewashing resolution which really does not condemn Sri Lanka at all. The resolution doesn't talk about war crimes at all. The resolution doesn't talk about ordering an independent international inquiry into war crimes. These are all absent in this resolution. Actually, we look at it as a conspiracy that Sri Lanka is posing as if it is against it. Actually, this resolution saves Sri Lanka. So the Indian government is actually doing a ploy to support Sri Lanka by supporting the resolution.
But Jnani Sankaran, you have Sri Lanka, you have the Sri Lankan media, Sri Lankan media saying that India has betrayed Lanka. You have the Sri Lankan foreign minister calling Mr. Krishna saying, please don't vote this way. And you're saying it's a conspiracy to save Sri Lanka. Everybody is doing a drama, a lot of pretense there. See, if India has no moral right on this resolution at all, on either way, to vote against or to support, because while the war was on, what was India doing? While people were actually getting killed, what was India's position? Did it intervene in Sri Lanka? Did it prevent Sri Lanka from continuing with the war? Did it bring both the parties to the table for talks? It could have avoided so much of bloodshed at the time. There was no proactive role from India at that time at all.
Going on, India cannot make war against Sri Lanka.
There is no moral right for India.
Okay, Mr. Narayan Swamy, your reaction, this resolution, Jnani Sankaran says is a whitewash. Jnani, I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you. Mr. Narayan Swamy.
It is absolutely wrong. It is absolutely wrong. Because the resolution which United States has brought, America brought the resolution here, because negotiations are going on about the wordings of the resolution,
there is no
the format of the resolution.
There, no mention
if the format will be done on the time at the time of voting, at that time we will see whether there is any improvement in that. But because the issue that has been raised, United States also and also the other countries including Norway and all, that LLRC, the recommendations have to be implemented by the Sri Lankan government. That's what they wanted. And as far as we are concerned, we will support, because there is a massacre today, therefore we will support the resolution, because the Sri Lanka should learn a lesson from that.
Sri Lanka should learn a lesson. India standing for a principle. Mr. Sibal, just coming to you, Dr. Swamy, in a second. Mr. Sibal, to my point, many people believe that India's conventional approach to all resolutions is to abstain. It's time to take a clear stand. We can't be fence sitters anymore. What would you say to that?
Well, I think it's very unfortunate that if you are asked to take a stand, it should be against a neighboring country like Sri Lanka, where our relationship is extremely sensitive and there are very sensitive foreign policy dimensions involved, and it goes against the principle of interfering in the internal affairs of countries. India has a special responsibility in the region, and the United States taking the initiative to present this resolution with the backing of the UK and others, in fact, is creating very difficult diplomatic situation for India, where we are being forced to revise our principal position on these issues. Now, if India has not been able to take a position condemning human rights violation in a host of countries far away from our distant shores, and the first time that we do it is against a neighboring country in our region, I think there is something very wrong with this approach. And also it is a failure of Indian policy that we are not able to deal with this situation bilaterally with Sri Lanka, and now we are being compelled to join the international community, countries far away from our region, to put pressure on a neighboring country. Now, this is something very odd in the direction of our foreign policy in this respect.
That's an important point. And Dr. Swamy, would you take that point that we haven't been able to take a clear position in so many other cases, and we're doing this now because we can?
No, it's worse than that, because the fight that Sri Lankan government did against the LTT was really a fight of, was a war that India should have waged with against the LTT. So in that sense, Sri Lanka was doing a great service to India's national security by finishing off the LTT. Now in that process, if some laws of human rights have been broken, it is for us, in a sense of gratitude, to intervene, interact with the Sri Lankans and say that these are the things that we have come to our notice, please do something. And if they didn't do something, or they didn't do it fast enough, or whatever, that is the time we should have publicly taken.
But as a liberal democracy, don't we have to speak up when rules of war are broken?
Yes, you have to.
When civilians are killed, when the allegations is the civilians were undercounted,
in this case,
when the forces
in this case,
went in.
Our civilians were killed by the LTT, the Tamils in Sri Lanka were killed by the LTT, there were human rights excesses on both sides. Why should the Sri Lanka government be single-handedly directed?
Why should they? Last comment.
No, firstly, Sri Lanka is a sovereign country. It is our neighbor. Having acknowledged this fact, we should consider it is not just an internal matter of Sri Lanka. In fact, it has spilled over to India. Even today, we have hundreds of thousands of Sri Lankan Tamils living in Tamil Nadu as refugees.
Yeah.
What is this problem? People should try to understand. Secondly, what Jnani said, I agree with him for the first 4 points. These 4 points I raised in the parliament. India should strengthen the resolution.
You're saying the resolution should be even more strident, in a sense.
More strident, more forthright. War crimes and abuse of human rights must be mentioned. And impartial international investigation must be there. Then a time frame must be there.
Jnani Sankaran, last comment from you. Jnani Sankaran, what is the options before India according to you?
One more thing.
Let him just speak.
One more thing.
Let him just speak. Jnani Sankaran, yes. Jnani.
Barka, all that we want is Indian government to bring about a strong resolution demanding an independent international inquiry into the war crimes. India is silent about the channel for revelations so far. It has to talk openly about what it thinks. India is not talking. India is pretending to talk.
Mr. Narayan Swamy, you are hearing varying voices here. Some who say that India is, in a sense, inviting international scrutiny on our own record. This is dangerous territory. The others who say this resolution is not strong enough.
No, because, there are three major concerns which are shown by the Honorable Prime Minister on the Sri Lanka issue in the Parliament. Number one, resettlement of the people who have been, who could not get their location there, who could not live there, for all the facility to be given to those people. That is number one. Number two, the purpose of devolution of power to those areas where Tamils are living. The Prime Minister said the Sri Lankan government should attend to it. The third one is the government of India is inclined to support the resolution moved in the United Nations, the Human Rights Commission. The three issues that have been told. Now, the resolution, what form of resolution it is coming, how it is coming, the negotiations are going on, discussions are going on. Ultimately, when the resolution is firmed up, we can talk about everything. Now, we are talking on issues which are very much in the air.
Okay. You're saying in the negotiations, the resolution can still be firmed up. Mr. Sibil, 10 seconds.
I want to know whether India is discussing with Sri Lanka about what the resolution should be.
Okay. There's clearly no domestic consensus. Mr. Sibil, is that worrying to you, that there is no consensus actually on which way we should go? But we have decided to vote for this resolution. Mr. Sibil.
We are fighting our internal battles, and we are creating a precedent which will recoil on us, because we'll be asked then to vote in favor of so many other resolutions. The lead will be taken by the United States. Even in this case, we are following the lead of the United States. And we will then, tomorrow, if there are sanctions imposed or a resolution is moved to impose sanctions on Sri Lanka, then we'll have to follow that. But why can't we put bilaterally pressure on Sri Lanka
Yeah.
If we want to be bold enough to put pressure on Sri Lanka internationally, why don't we first do it bilaterally?
So
there are
you're saying
means
we're
to
jumping
do so.
stages here.
And really force Sri Lanka to listen to us rather than going to the international community and following the lead of a third country to try and put pressure
10
on
seconds
Sri
to both
Lanka.
of you.
To
Mr.
my
Raja,
mind,
you're not
it doesn't
convinced.
make sense.
I have to end here. Mr. Raja, you're not convinced that we will vote for the resolution yet? You're not convinced?
No, no. Who told you that India is going to vote for the resolution?
Well, the Prime Minister said we're
inclined
To a resolution.
Inclined to your resolution.
What do you believe will happen? Last
Inclined to your
have to end.
resolution.
What do you believe
The
will
final
happen?
text is
What
not
do you
there.
believe will happen?
Raja
It was
does not understand what it means by inclined.
That resolution, if we vote for, we are completely discredited, and the resolution will be defeated in the Human Rights Commission because China, Russia, Saudi Arabia, all will vote against it.
All right, Mr. Narayan Swamy, are we categorically going to vote for the resolution? Categorically.
No, because when the Honorable Prime Minister told in the floor of the House, I would like to reiterate what the Honorable Prime Minister said. When Prime Minister said in the House that it's going to be final, the Prime Minister, that it is final, and we will definitely, according to me, according to my understanding, that India will vote with the resolution.
All right. In your understanding, that is what will happen. We'll know in I think, a little over a day. We'll leave it there, gentlemen. Mr. Narayan Swamy, Jnani Sankaran, Kaval Sibal, D. Raja, Subramanian Swamy. Thank you so much. It's a volatile debate with no domestic consensus. And finally, as we end, that battle between Salman Rushdie and Imran Khan never seems to end. Now, Salman Rushdie reacting to our interview on Twitter, saying Imran claims we never met. Well, we dined at Naveen Patnaik's Delhi home in 1984 and he attended my lecture the next day. There are many witnesses. The battle continues. We leave it there. Good night. Thanks for watching.